I'm Jim Check. With me, Iain Burns, our managing editor out there in the nation's capital. Kind of a cloudy day here in the Okanagan. Looks sunnier there. But it is
not so much.
November 12th, the day after Remembrance Day. We've got lots to talk about, and we may have some hiccups here as Iain is on child duty again. Clock ticking for Mark Carney to deliver. Public service workers, the future of Canada's military. Carbon tax is something Carney can't let go of. Smith's deadline is this Sunday. Buy Canadian. Investment capital flees. Canada has a plan to increase its military. Food has become the target of organized thieves. Housing prices crash. More waste, fraud, and incompetence uncovered. Media dying in Canada after being crippled by the Liberals. City of Vancouver makes green cuts. BBC in the hot seat. Your feedback, and a lot more in there. Like, there's a ton today. There's an absolute ton today on the really big show. So let's get right into it. We're going to kick it off right away because, one of the things that we've been saying all along, just as a note here, kind of the theme here. This is Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary there in the United States, talking about a blind trust. Let's hear what he has to say what a blind trust is.
Sure. Yeah, and Mr. Secretary, I hope this question doesn't piss you off.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. It's 4-on-1, but it seems about right.
Well, okay. Yesterday, the stock market took a pretty good jump on news that the shutdown might come to an end. A lot of people did very well in the stock market, I assume, and I assume that you probably were one of them, and good for you.
That would be an incorrect assumption because I had to sell all my stocks to become Treasury Secretary.
You sold them all?
Had
really?
to, yes.
But you have a blind trust, I would imagine.
There's no such thing as a blind trust.
Okay, thanks. So. Thanks for straightening me out on that. But anyway.
Apparently in Canada there is. Scott, you can come to Canada and you can have a blind trust.
Come and speak to the world's foremost financial and economic expert, Mark Carney. He'll tell you. He'll put you in your place.
The world economic banker, and he'll tell you that you can have a blind trust just in Canada. There you go.
But we're familiar with this anyway, aren't we? Because there was a lot of chat about this when Trump became president. And the Democrats, left-leaning people in the United States, and therefore also in Canada, because they follow the lead of the Democrats, were crying out about how disgraceful it was. That because he promised a blind trust, didn't he? And people were saying exactly the same thing. I mean, for some reason, all of that skepticism has been suspended now because it applies to somebody that they like, Mark Carney.
But apparently there's been a leak out there. They're saying there's the CBC got the list of new projects that are promised to be delivered this Thursday. So they've been talking about this new list coming down, and supposedly CBC always tends to get the leaks. Odd, isn't it? But good for them. According to this story and this list here, the Sisson Mine, Critical Minerals, New Brunswick, Crawford Nickel Project, Ontario, the Sealism Liquefied Natural Gas Project, BC, and then some hydro project. No pipeline on this list.
I mean, also these, again, are kind of projects that are underway, aren't they? I mean, that LNG project in BC, David Eby's been going on about that for ages. So he's quite happy with the progress that it's made. It doesn't seem like they're plucking something up out of something that's been discarded or something that's beyond the imagination of the provinces. It's not like they're picking it up and saying, this is what we're going to do. We're going to put all our energies into this thing. Instead, it's like they're seeing things that are already going to happen anyway and sort of saying, yeah, we'll give you a little stamp and then that'll make us look good too.
Well, like the Keystone Pipeline would be an easy one, you would think, but hey.
Well, it would be a hard one. It would be an easy one in terms of actually building it, I assume, but it would be a hard one in terms of selling it to certain factions within the Liberal Party. And we know already that Mark Carney doesn't like to make hard decisions when it comes to potentially alienating the factions within his own party, which is bad news for Canada, but I suppose it's good news if you're a Liberal.
I mean, they are anticipating a deal in Calgary because Danielle Smith's deadline is this Sunday. So we got a little bit here from the Calgary Chamber here. Listen in.
The Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith, are hoping to secure a new pipeline for the province as negotiations to resolve Alberta's long-running energy dispute with Ottawa edging closer to a deal. CTV's Kevin Green has more.
The federal finance minister brought his sales pitch for Ottawa's new budget to Calgary, highlighting what the feds call a plan for a stronger, cleaner economy.
The fact that the Prime Minister changed the tone to talk about an energy superpower in both clean and conventional energy, I think has really changed how people perceive these things. I think even people I would see at the grocery store, they understand today the nexus between economic security, energy security, and national security.
Champagne told Calgary business leaders the government is working closely with the province to finalize deals on energy and emissions.
How do we deal with the regulatory uncertainty? Because it's one thing to say that, we're looking at ways to increase investment, but we really need to deal with the regulatory challenges. And so that's the other piece, and that's the risk management piece that I actually asked the minister about. But the energy sector, I think, is encouraged.
Champagne's message comes as talks between Ottawa and Alberta over oil and gas caps, pipelines, and tanker policy edge towards a possible deal. Last week, Danielle Smith was all smiles meeting Carney, and on her weekend radio show, she hinted a deal is imminent.
We've been going back and forth now daily on a memorandum of understanding, and I hope that we're able to iron out some of the differences that we have in time for Grey Cup or shortly after.
But Monday in Fredericton, the Prime Minister said it will likely be sooner than that.
They're built with Indigenous partners, they're consistent with their climate goals, and they have a real economic return. And so you would expect to see some of those in the announcement later this week.
A spokesperson for Enbridge says the federal changes have the company optimistic but cautious, saying in a statement to CTV, what we can't lose sight of, however, is that in order for large energy projects to move forward, the federal government must make various policy changes. This includes simplifying regulations, shortening timelines for project approvals, committing to actions that help unlock production growth, and enhancing Indigenous engagement. Champagne hopes to walk out of Calgary with the endorsement of the
Yeah, so, there's hope. But here's Mark Carney when asked about the energy blocks. Let's listen in on what he had to say.
The sector doesn't appear thrilled about the budget. How can you succeed in turning Canada into an energy superpower when the budget didn't provide any of the 5 relief measures that the sector had asked for in its Build Canada Now letter earlier this year?
Well, I'm not sure I totally recognize that characterization, if I may. The first is, let's look at Canada's position as an energy superpower, and let me generalize it. If you're a superpower, you're able to do more than one thing, and Canada can do many things in energy. We have our electricity grid is 85% clean. That's because of hydro. It's because of nuclear, other renewable power. We have an enormous opportunity to scale up that clean grid. I met with Premier Holt, as you may know, this morning. We spent a lot of time talking about how New Brunswick can help be part of the solution for that, whether that's more nuclear, whether that's interties with more clean power that's coming from other provinces, Quebec, potentially Nova Scotia, and just linking in together. So there's a huge element. What's in the budget for that? Enormous incentives in order for that to move. Clean energy tax credit confirmed in the budget. I won't go into all the details, but something called the super productivity deduction, which is additive. You stack these on top of them. It's enormous incentives for that to move forward. The second point, and I'm just going to talk about, you can do more than one thing, and then I should hand to your colleague for his question, is in conventional energy. Back in June, this country shipped our first LNG shipment to Asia. We will ship 50 million tons to Asia by the end of this decade, and potentially double that again. And part of what's happening with the major projects is we are making that possible. We're making the speed with which we can do that possible, and we're doing it in a way with the companies, obviously, with Indigenous partners who are full partners in all these projects, in a way that's sustainable. So the emissions of these projects are in the top quartile, so or the top decile, so amongst the lowest emissions for the actual production and transportation of that LNG in the world. So that's how we're moving forward, and we're making all of that. Possible. So the investment is large scale, and we're moving forward. Thank you.
Didn't answer the question, did he? I mean, he did better. He did it. Had a better go of it in that fireside chat, didn't he? On I think it was Friday, where those questions were raised about the legislation in place that makes it hard to build energy infrastructure, and he just said that's wrong. So apparently he knows better. He knows better than the people that actually work in the industry.
Here's the cornerstone, though, and this is the thing that they don't seem to be letting go of.
Well, there's a looming trade war with the United States and the industrial carbon tax in place. I'm wondering if in your plans to support Canadian industries, you would consider exempting companies from the industrial carbon tax, particularly like ones like Algoma Steel, which are actively working towards having greener technologies in place in the near future.
So what's happening is that there's a couple things here. One is that there's a value to that industrial carbon tax in the predictability of that tax and the certainty around. It encourages the types of investments that help companies such as Algoma leapfrog their competitors, and leapfrog in many cases their American competitors, but international competitors.
Well, there's
That's good. Now that one I'm not buying at all. Leapfrog? Again.
But also the predictability of it, just because it's in place. You could also say that you're going to put the income tax at 75% and you won't change your mind. That's also predictability, isn't it? But it's not necessarily a good thing. It's another non sequitur from Mark Carney, who seems to, when he's backed in against a corner, backed against a wall, it's just non sequitur, one after the other.
If we go back to the initial thing we played from Scott Bessett there, Mark Carney has a lot of his wealth tied up in Brookfield. Brookfield has made massive billions and billions of dollars of investment in carbon capture. And many, many countries have moved away from climate policies, and including Vanguard's, BlackRock's, all the banks, even all the Canadian banks have moved away from these policies. But Brookfield has massive investments in carbon capture. And maybe that's why they can't let go, because almost every nation has moved away. Again, the deal the Americans signed with South Korea, Japan, and Germany, they don't have a climate policy. They don't have an industrial carbon tax. We're doing deals with China. We sent them $1 billion of Canadian Infrastructure Bank money. They don't have a climate carbon tax, industrial carbon tax. We don't compete. So to say that Algoma Steel with an industrial carbon tax will be more competitive than the American companies that don't have a tax on them? How does a tax make companies more competitive? Explain that to me like I'm stupid.
Well, the idea is that it's going to put those companies ahead of the line when it comes to going into the market to find buyers. Well, but it also...
Again, just wait a second. Just like Japan, South Korea, and Germany didn't ask.
Indeed. But I think Carney seems to be, at least based on his public pronouncements, he seems to be convinced that that's accurate, that's right, that it will happen in that way. But also you have to remember that he calls himself a pragmatist nowadays. But he wasn't much of a pragmatist a few years ago when he was working for the UN, and he was talking about climate change in quite ideological terms, like almost theological terms. And then he was asked in Britain, one of his many interviews with a British journalist, he was asked, are you still the same Mark Carney from your book Values, which is all about this kind of thing, climate change malarkey? And he said, I'm the same person. So maybe he really is, maybe he really is the same person, and he really is still a bit of an ideologue, a theologian in the climate change faith, and he still believes in this kind of stuff, regardless of whether there's any real rationale for it, like any sort of rationale based on, money or anything like that, like commerce.
All the big money has moved on. All the banks have moved on. JP Morgan's, all of them have moved on, including the United States. All the big economies have moved on. And so that leaves Carney with trying to figure out, maybe it is we sell it to ourselves and we're the only ones that want an industrial carbon tax. Maybe that's the whole gig. We sell it to ourselves and we want to tax ourselves. So it's like we're taking a little bit off the top. It makes no sense. But I have been watching a little bit of that COP30 going on, and it reminds me a lot when I used to go to church with my mom, where they scare the crap out of you and then pass the hat. Seem to have lost the monitor there. Isn't that it? I mean, they make these speeches, and then the next thing you know, they ask you for money.
It's millenarianism, if anyone's interested. I mean, that would be a textbook example of millenarianism, which is a sort of group, a cult, usually part of a religion that talks about the impending end of the world. And in the meantime, accrues power for itself based on that threat.
Yeah, anyway, let's listen to the Environment Minister here talk about carbon here.
Pitch from Canada's Environment and Energy Ministers about what they're calling a new climate competitiveness challenge. It's a mouthful, but essentially it's about fighting climate change while also prioritizing energy and economic growth. It may seem contradictory at first. CTV has more.
It's a climate strategy that signals a shifting approach. One aiming to deal with a new global trade landscape, rapid technological advancements, and a move toward clean energy around the world, says Canada's Environment Minister.
This strategy connects our climate ambition with a plan for economic growth. It prioritizes measures that deliver the greatest emissions reductions and increases competitiveness at the lowest cost for Canadians.
But the framework is short on details and provides no update on where Canada stands on emissions reduction targets.
This climate competitiveness strategy, when we look at what Canada was doing prior, actually brings us back.
But the government says the plan had to change.
Energy and the environment must go hand in hand.
But balancing environmental ambitions and aspirations for new conventional energy projects will be a challenge. The strategy indicates an emissions cap on oil and gas could be dropped if other measures to cut pollution go ahead, a move industry has long called for.
It's helpful.
Good. And that's what I've been saying, that they're going to drop this emissions cap, and in its place, it's going to come the carbon capture credits. And that's what they're going to pitch, is those carbon capture credits. That's what we can look forward to.
And again, there's a religious analogy to be had there, isn't there, of the church kind of reaching its fingers into commercial enterprises to try and get their tithe, to try and get their share.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is. It'll give 60% tax credits to these companies that create this carbon capture, including Brookfield, and then allow them to tax our energy. I think you're gonna have to unplug it and plug it back in. Like, we're just having some trouble with our monitors here, and we're kind of like meddling around here. But yeah.
But it reminds me of the sale of indulgences as well. I mean, that's probably the most apposite analogy. It's kind of, what you're doing is very sinful, you naughty, naughty boy. But if you give some money to the church, I can make things right with God on your behalf. And then you can continue being a bit of a sinner, you naughty boy, and you'll still get into heaven. But you have to make sure, bring the wheelbarrow full of gold to your local monastery.
Yeah, basically that's about it, right? And Danielle Smith, though, that deadline, she wants action by Sunday. She did hint in that little interview that it could be a little longer than Sunday, but I think they want that MOU, and there's a lot of talk about it, but we'll see what happens. But I mean, my bet is that the emission caps gets dropped. In exchange for it, they're going to put into place carbon capture, which is, again, these companies are coming here and they're going to get 60% tax credit, which is your tax dollars, and then they're going to be able to sell carbon credits to our energy companies, basically tax.
And to continue with the medieval religious analogies, I would say Danielle Smith. We all know she's extremely desperate, isn't she, Danielle Smith, to just get something. It's been a war for her entire life, really. Her entire political life has just been a war with Ottawa to try and get something done. So she's desperate, and the worry for her must be that she'll agree to something that the people of Alberta aren't satisfied with, and then she'll be burned at the stake as a witch, and then that puts us on the road to Alberta separation, I suppose. If this is not adequate, like the stakes here are very, very high, aren't they? And she's going to try and come back and say, I've got it. Like, I've done it. I've figured it out. I've got the deal. But if it's not good enough, if there are a lot of questions surrounding it, then she will suffer for that.
There's a huge conflict of interest sitting there, though. And I mean, it's huge. Brookfield has invested billions. You can go read the headlines. Just search Brookfield carbon capture. Billions upon billions in carbon capture. And if the deal is they'll remove the emissions cap and replace it with carbon capture, I mean, the media should lose its mind. Will it, though?
I think not.
That'll be the question of the day. Anyway, Mark Carney needs to keep his own. This is from Brian Lilly. Keep his own Liberal caucus. Sounds like there's some problems there with his EV mandate. There's some. You keep alluding to it and saying that there is a faction within his group that really don't want any oil and gas, including the Quebec Bloc Québécois. Like, they don't want any of this. And that the big one is Guilbeault, right? Like, you would call him an extremist of the Liberal Party. He's now the Heritage Minister and is deeply opposed to following the path of the Americans, right? So he will be kicking and screaming for any relaxation of anything in the emissions cap and pipelines. And
yeah, I mean, I haven't read this from Brian Lilly, and I haven't read it from really anyone. But I am happy to be agreed with, at least, by him, even though he probably has no idea that I've been saying that as well. But it's just obvious, isn't it? I mean, you don't need any sort of special privileged access to MPs or anything like that to see that this is exactly what's happening, because that can be the only possible explanation for the kind of irrational behavior that Mark Carney is displaying and the rest of the cabinet. And this is the sort of cherry on top of the giant cake of irrationality, isn't it? The EV mandate, which is just bizarre sort of act of suicide almost. It's kind of economic self-sabotage. Why else would somebody like Mark Carney do that? This self-described pragmatist, unless it did actually have a pragmatic justification, which is to keep his power base stable so that he can remain as prime minister. That's the only time that he's going to make a sacrifice that might appear to all of us to be mad. Yeah. Obviously, the pressure's on, and he has to appease these people. And it's not just, I mean, there are several factions, the environmental faction and then there's the Quebec faction, but there's a lot of crossover there, for sure, isn't there? I mean, they're kind of, if there's a Venn diagram, they're definitely in the middle. But then there's other things like the First Nations. Then there's also the kind of identity politics. We saw an attempt, didn't we, a couple of weeks ago with that announcement of close to $1 billion for identity groups. That's an attempt to appease them, that faction within the Liberal Party. The 50-50 sex quota on ministers, that's another attempt to appease that lobby. But the Liberal Party it's kind of this mad, dysfunctional coalition of so many groups that aren't natural friends in any way. Realistically, they should all be in different parties and pursuing different aims, but they are in the same party. Mark Carney's on top of that party, and so therefore he has to, like the zookeeper feeding the seals, he's got to throw fish, and this absurd EV mandate is just one of those fish, isn't it?
I would think, though, if they drop the emissions cap, like I believe they're going to do, and replace it with carbon capture, I would believe that people like Guilbeault will see through that, though, and see that as a huge conflict of interest with Brookfield being one of the companies in the world that has invested big into carbon capture. And again, just for Mark Carney was the head of that Net Zero Alliance, all the banking alliance, and they've all left, including JP Morgan's and Morgan Stanley's and all the big ones. Now Vanguard and BlackRock and all of them have left as well. And, there's a lot of talk out there in the stock world and saying that, people don't even want the BlackRocks and Vanguards voting their shares anymore because of all the climate agenda they put forward, that now this has all died on the vine. And the only people still pushing it seems to be Mark Carney in Canada. And who's the big beneficiary? BlackRock and this one company that's already moved to Canada. Carbon Capture USA, Tim Hodgson touted it. It's going to take 60% tax credits out of your pocket, out of the Canadian taxpayer's pocket, and then get the ability, if this goes through, to sell carbon credits to oil field companies, which is basically a form of taxation. And
But
here's
not taxation by the CRA.
No,
by
yeah.
the Canadian democratically elected
companies.
Government, taxation by private companies.
It's the best of both worlds for companies like Brookfield. And here's just some of the failures of the Liberals in some of these EV forays they've done in battery projects. Look at this. And this is a list here for you of the billions of dollars investment here. Just going to click this list here and let you just kind of like scroll through it. British Volt, Ford, Unicore, Northvolt, Line Electric. That's the ones where the buses were lighting on fire. We did that story just a while ago. Remember that? Buses all lighting on fire. Honda paused their project. GM Canada just closed that one down. Just look at all this, billions and billions and billions of dollars. Anyway, billions and billions and billions of dollars. But, you know, they're coming out now and they're, you know, Mark Carney highlighted our $186 million investment through Budget 25 to Buy Canada policy, Buy Canadian policy. Mark Carney's not buying Canadian. Is he?
Because he's a pragmatist, isn't he? And he demands the best. He demands the best returns on his stocks. That means buying American.
But it is, you know, like if you look at the from the Prime Minister's office, here's this fear of the world is increasingly dangerous and divided. How come we're the only ones really seeing that? It's just weird, eh? And just a little bit on how Brookfield pays its taxes, just a little bit from a committee hearing here.
Most of what I know about Brookfield and its taxes and its corporate structure just raise questions upon questions upon questions, and certainly lend themselves to the concerns that you're pointing to. The last I looked, Brookfield's effective tax rate was somewhere below 10% versus what you would expect of over 26% corporate income tax rate. Now, as has been mentioned, they're lowering their tax bill through a whole range of methods, many of which are perfectly legitimate, and we can say we wanted them to do that. But I think there is probably a lot that are at the very least questionable. And given that Brookfield, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, relies on a lot of the things that governments provide to people, it should be making a contribution to those things. So it was said that corporations aren't people, but corporations like to play both sides of that. When it comes to taxes, they're not people. But when it comes to certain other legal rights, then they'll say that, yeah, we have the same rights of being naturalized persons. So which is it? Corporations should be making contributions to the public revenue because they benefit from what the public provides.
It's an old NDP argument, isn't it? Don't hear it very much from them these days, though.
One of our commenters said, why doesn't Canada just buy one of those empty auto factories and build their own EVs? I can tell you why. Because there's been no successful auto manufacturer in the past 50, 75 years other than Tesla. Auto manufacturer, never mind EV. They're the only profitable EV maker in the world. What we should do is beg for his forgiveness and ask if we can have a Tesla plant in Canada if we're serious about EVs. That's what we should do. And ask them for a battery plant instead of like throwing money down the drain on all these failed startups. Ridiculous.
There's no reason as well why Tesla shouldn't come to Canada. I mean, almost everything is in place for them to open something up in Ontario there, Southern Ontario. But yeah, they've decided, the Liberal Party has decided to make an enemy of Tesla for some reason.
Right. The only successful EV maker in the world. In Canada is probably, it doesn't make any sense. But why should it make sense? But here's a chart for you to look at, the business investment per capita, the US and Canada. And this, we can bring up chart after chart after chart. And it's always the same.
It is always the same. Something, it's almost like, did a meteorite come and crash into Canada in 2015 or something?
What happened?
Something big happened in 2015, for sure.
And what is not changing? The meteorite hasn't left yet. It seems to be just actually causing more damage. Weird. Really weird. Affordability gap leaves Liberal budget with middling reviews, and this is from a poll. There you go.
Yeah, an interesting one, actually, because, you know, the polls have been very, very kind and friendly and gentle to Mark Carney and the Liberals ever since Carney emerged on the scene. But this should worry them, I think, because it suggests that people really aren't impressed. Like, more people were disappointed in the budget than pleased with it, according to Leger, who fancy themselves the best in the business.
Yeah, our friend Lightning Rod's back. Welcome back. We haven't seen you in a couple of days. Yeah, EVs. I drive an EV. I love it. But why wouldn't we want the best EVs then? That's the question. But this is the big one. Here's the big one. We're going to make this a top headline. This is the plan by the Canadian military to increase ranks, because we have about 55,000 in our complement, and I think our full complement is supposed to be 75,000. We couldn't get anybody to join. And then we even tried to get immigrants to join, and that failed as well. But now they're going to say they're going to, this is almost hilarious. They're going to rely on the public servants to boost its ranks by 300,000. So I think that's fair. If you're a public servant and taking taxpayer dollars, you can be first in line for your uniform.
For the first time in their lives, they might actually earn their salary.
Well, I'm sure we're going to see some reaction from this, but federal public servants would be trained to shoot guns, drive trucks, fly drones. Would they get the same pay as the military? Would they get cut from their $136,000 average down to $40,000? Would they get the pay cut with it, or would they be the most paid of the soldiers in the field? Because our soldiers, I think, start around $40,000 a year, and I think they got a 20% raise, which is about a $2 raise, right? Because they're making $20 an hour. They're going to get a $2 raise, and the average salary for a federal employee is $136,000. So, will they get a cut in pay, or will our military get an increase of more than, $2 an hour? So they're out in the field.
Maybe they're just going to be like the super soldiers on the field, like just sort of illuminated with their powers as they come in. It's like, that's why they get the big bucks, everyone.
This is why they're not serious.
Meet the innovative Click and Grow Smart Garden.
What happened there? Our tech guy.
Somebody started playing the piano. Was that Rommel?
A tech guy said he has no idea what's going on. There you go. CBC is hacking us. But I mean, they're doing the Coast Guard, moving the Coast Guard in. They're saying that's going to be part of the military budget. And the Coast Guard said, nope, don't want it. And I'm sure there's going to be some pushback from the federal employees. But they did release a training video from one of the federal employees. Here, we got to play it for you. He's getting ready to go into battle. There you go. That's good enough. There you go. There's your training video.
You're going to get that much energy.
Oh.
Very
there you
good.
go. Sean
but this
Fraser.
Is, yeah, you won't be surprised to hear that. I think they might have copied this from the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, because this is something that happens in the UK, where civil servants over there are kind of told. It's not quite the same as in like that the same numbers, but they're kind of told, if you want to get ahead in the civil service, then you should join the British Army or Royal Navy Reserves, and sort of prove your commitment, and that'll help you sort of stand out when you want to get a promotion. And I've known people that have done that, joined the reserves. So I think, as is the case with so many of the policies that come out of the Liberal Party, I think they've been copying the homework of the British.
Just in the interest of time, we're going to go past the Sean Fraser one. We're going to come look at, there's like the organized crime now stealing meat and that. Go past that one. I'm going to play that one. So this is where meat's so expensive now that they're stealing groceries.
for Gordon Dean, owner of Mike Dean Local Grocer.
In the last 3 to 6 months, there's been a big uptake, big increase in the amount of organized theft in our little small town stores, which is why we're having to make some changes.
Thousands of dollars worth of goods stolen each week from store shelves.
Full baskets or large chunks of meat or cheese, which is 15, 20, 30 packages in an organized fashion being put into somebody's bags or put into somebody's outfitted coat.
That's good. That's what Canada's become, where we're, it's so expensive that groceries are now a hot commodity. That's what the past 11 years have brought us. These are the same policies.
But there's also, we've all seen the videos of people stealing things from liquor stores and whatnot. Like, there's just no punishment. It's literally, it's impossible. It's even illegal to kind of restrain someone, stop them. Like, everyone's scared that they're going to commit the crime by trying to stop a crime. So if you're a thief, it astonishes me that this doesn't happen more often. Like, it kind of astonishes me that people don't just turn up to like a grocery store and just steal like literally everything, like completely clear the shelves. Because why not? There's no punishment. Nobody's going to stop you. And even if you are caught, arrested, and charged, nothing's going to happen. You're fine. It's cool.
Like I said, the Liberal policies of the you don't get charged, you just get thrown out, or the cops won't even show up. And also, the inflation has been going crazy, and it's made food so expensive. Like I said, I was in the Save on Foods the other day, and I just looking at families. It's heartbreaking to look at it, where they're looking at meat like they're looking at a jewelry cabinet, like a jewelry case, and just like thinking of a day that they can afford a steak again. This is not Canada. These policies are just so sad. Here's a mortgage guy I follow, and this is what he has to say on this. Like, we're seeing price drops. We're seeing, like 35% price drops, and these things won't recover for a while. Like, a lot of people in really a lot of hot water, and that's where most of Canadian wealth is stored. Many people bought homes when Tiff Macklin said, go out and get that mortgage. Don't worry about, we're not going to raise interest rates. And then they raised them in unprecedented fashion, 19-fold, and now a lot of these mortgages are coming due. Let's listen to a little bit of what Ron Butler has to say here.
Holy shit, the price of houses is dropping in Southern Ontario in the last 4 months. Like, Christ on a cracker. It's like it's fallen off a cliff. Like, it's like this. So we thought prices would fall in 2023 because the rates were through the roof. The mortgage rates were through the roof. Prices ground down, but not, tremendously. 2024, no, the rates were improving. Sales were not improving. Prices were not going up, but they weren't falling off a cliff. But when 2025 hit, fuck me. Like, the prices are just crumbling. Right. Why?
That's good. We'll just leave it there with what Ron has to say. F me, what the heck is going on?
He sounds a bit like Tucker Carlson. Maybe he's gone to the Tucker Carlson School of Elocution.
It's been revealed that the Carney Trudeau Liberals, paid out $7.1 billion for the Canada Child Benefit to non-Canadians since 2016. You were asking who gets a $10 a day daycare. Now you know. You weren't getting it.
Well, this is different, isn't it? The Canada Child Benefit, but oh God, it's funny, isn't it? Should we laugh? Should we laugh or cry? Those are the options.
Yeah, we're gonna go past the next one too. It's just in a matter of time. The New Brunswick won't go past that. It's just a photo op thing. Federal budget refreshed immigration targets will weigh on growth, says the economist, right? They say, the Liberals pledged to oversee a modest reduction in immigration. We looked at those numbers a while back, and they are modest over the next few years, and it will hit Canada's GDP growth, according to the economist Stephen Brown. But it also, it'll all help with, people getting jobs.
4 days ago.
Pretty much obvious, right? I don't know, we're getting all this audio that just keeps creeping in, but who knows?
But also growth, this is something that economists, they need to be spanked publicly. They need to be put in the town square and tomatoes need to be hurled at them. Because when they talk about things like GDP growth, and they say, oh, that's gonna hurt growth. It's like, obviously, if you add people to your economy on a gigantic scale like the Trudeau government did, your economy is going to appear to grow, even if the citizens in your economy get poorer, because that's why GDP per capita is what really matters. And even then, GDP per capita has its flaws. There are other ways to measure standard of living, but that's what matters. Standard of living matters. And if you want to have a decent standard of living, you need a job, don't you? So, I mean, it's just a no-brainer that this is positive, and that it's a bit misleading to talk about economic, damage to the economy. Maybe the GDP figures won't look quite so good, but it might end up being the case that the people are better off.
Well, hey, like I said, the Liberals, fight against each other too. This Liberal MP has sponsored a Commons petition to grant federal aid and permanent residencies to foreign students and migrant workers facing departure or deportation. More than 3 million foreigners are in Canada on valid or expired temporary permits, and that's the official estimate. Government messaging remains vague and inconsistent. Canada must provide clear timelines and realistic pathways for permanence for those who have already demonstrated their commitment to this country. And that's from MP Amandeep Sadi. And they said,
So, I mean, she's 24 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, she's not William Pitt the younger, is she? I don't think, by the looks of things. Don't think she's pulling up any trees. But that's besides the point, I suppose. Anyway, yeah, there's been a lot of messaging around this, and I've seen it on the margins of coming out of the Liberals and their bump talking about, like the Americans do, like the Democrats do, where they're always talking about, oh, just this one time, guys, just this one time, bro. We're just going to legalize all of these people and give them basically citizenship. But just this once, it's never going to happen again. I mean, you can decide whether you believe that yourself.
Yeah, as of January 1st, 2025, the non-permanent resident population is around 3 million. That's big. That's 10% almost, right? It's huge. And,
But it's it's this lack of ambition as well, isn't it? And this kind of cowardice, I dare I say it, a kind of cowardice, this lack of boldness. And they will not make a hard decision. And it is quite a hard decision, isn't it, to tell lots of people to go home that should be in Canada. Like, to enforce your border, to enforce immigration rules, that's a hard thing to do. And I feel like it's an off-ramp, isn't it? It's like, you mean deport people? Like, nah, let's just give them a path to citizenship. It's fine.
And just wait a second. I got to drag my soapbox out for this next story here so I can jump up on it. Revenues crashed despite aid. This newspaper revenue is down a quarter since 2020 despite millions in taxpayer bailouts. The latest figures follow comments by subsidized press chief lobbyist Paul Deegan. The Canadian publishers were unable to change their business model. This is the group that begged for Bill C-18 that's basically devastated and crippled media in Canada, including us, taking away our audience of 200,000 that we earn serving our community, taking it away, and then basically had media then at the begging bowl to the Liberal government for handouts, and they selectively decide who gets these handouts, but it's never enough. They took away the audience, and that's so most outlets lost half their audience and half their revenues because of Bill C-18, and they still won't let it go, even though half the Liberals think it's a bad idea. But Stephen Guilbeault thinks it's immoral to talk about, but Bill C-18 continues to crush. And at the same time, the Liberals spend millions of dollars on Meta, who they call the evil empire, getting their message out because they said the Meta platforms, Facebook and Instagram, are too important to ignore. But not important enough for media outlets like ourselves to get back on our outlets. Bill C-18 continues to basically censor media. It is the Online News Act, which is basically a form of censorship, and it feeds money like the big people at the trough are the CBC. They just feed like crazy at the trough. And here it is, newspapers, and we saw the chart of Global Chorus the other day, basically the Walking Dead, right? The stock that was in near 20 bucks is like 9 cents and had to do another bailout thing. There you go.
But I just love the way that they've written this, Blacklocks. they're very cheeky and they're very funny. But the way that they say lobbyist Deegan, CEO of News Media Canada, representing the subsidized press. they are just filled with contempt for organizations like that, aren't they?
Since 2020, operating revenues fell from 2.1 billion to 1.6 billion, 24% decline. Half the salaries or half the journalists in Canada are being paid by the government. And we wonder we have a media, I say it all the time, and Iain does too, a corrupted and crippled media in Canada. It's no wonder they have bias. And it's just, they're basically been subjected to being at the begging bowl. And Parliament in 2019 passed a $600 million bailout package for newsrooms on a promise of limited 5-year aid. Of course, there will be news outlets, newspapers that fail in transition. You can't give them forever. But do you know what I mean? Trudeau, remember in his little joking comments? Of course the media is good to me. I gave them $600 million. But I mean, there's more than that. The $600 million is just part of the money. And when I think it was Aaron Gunn that questioned Stephen Guilbeault in Parliament about Bill C-18, he said it was immoral to question Bill C-18. Immoral.
And it would be lovely to have a conversation with Stephen Guilbeault, wouldn't it? We've tried relentlessly for many months, and he won't have a conversation with us. But I just have to highlight one more quote here from the CEO of News Media Canada, which, as Blacklock says, represents the subsidized press. Very funny way of phrasing it. But he says, with foreign tech giants streaming most of the digital ad dollars in the country, the economics of digital just don't work for many. They cannot make a buck as a digital-only publisher. If you want to cover cops, court, city hall, etc., you need the advertising from the local Chevy dealer, Canadian Tire, etc., to support the newsroom. Why is the local Chevy dealer or Canadian Tire or whatever? Why are they not bothering to sponsor digital platforms these days? Oh yeah, because News Media Canada asked the government to, in effect, antagonize Facebook and led to media being banned on Facebook. And a lot of these companies then looked at news organizations and they said, "Oh, you don't even have social media." Like, well, I'm not sure about that. I think I'll just pay some like 20-year-old kid influencer like $2,000 and get more eyeballs on it than you can manage with your news stories about from the courts or whatever. It's just the irony there, really. They've brought about their own demise, and now they're complaining about it.
Ours, and we didn't get a choice.
It's a bit rich.
You know what I mean? We didn't get a choice because half our revenue. I mean, we had lots of government organizations. BC Lotteries used to advertise with us. BC Dairy advertised with us. And when we lost our Facebook, which is what they liked, our access to our audience of 200,000, they said, when you get your Facebook and Instagram back, give us a call. Because, I mean, that's what they wanted, because they wanted our audience. And they took away our audience. They took it away without asking us. They took it away, and then they selectively decided who they're going to fund. And that, wow, isn't that a great thing for the Liberals, talking about, you know, free democracy? That's what they want to talk about. And how many letters have we sent? How many letters have we sent? How many interviews have we asked for? And then we had Mark Carney and this was a national story, we had him here in Kelowna, West Kelowna, and we asked the question, we asked about Bill C-18 if they would repeal it, and he said, you're not going to like the answer. And the answer is, we're going to give more money to the CBC. Who thinks...
Which is unbiased, neutral, balanced, whatever he said.
And who thinks the CBC covers local news like the way we do? Who thinks that? Nobody. Absolutely nobody. And that's it. And then I advise you to support outlets like Blacklock's, Holly Dona Blacklock's. Buy the subscription. It's just over $300 a year because she does more work. Again, if you go to their website, the CBC's website today, I don't know, let's just take a look. What's on the CBC today? What are they telling you? I can guarantee there's a couple of Trump stories in there somewhere because they have TDS. So what do we got going on here? Poilievre holding first news conference. So they're going to slag Poilievre. And they're talking about Poilievre again. So it's all about Poilievre because, you know, distract. There he is. There he is. What did I say? Jeffrey Epstein. There's Trump right there.
Poilievre. Epstein.
Trump again, rising.
Look at that.
Rising prices.
By the way,
Trump.
that headline is glorious. As rising prices hit Americans. Oh, yeah, Americans. They're suffering from rising prices.
Yeah. Anyway, there you go. The media, the newspaper. Who's buying a newspaper? Who's buying a newspaper? They say digital doesn't work. Newspapers don't work. Nobody's buying newspapers. Nobody's listening to the radio either. Why don't you just like live in the real world? Repeal Bill C-18. Stop funding media. Free the press. Free the media. Anyway, I get off
And yeah, I mean, I would repeat, I would echo what you said about Blacklocks. Like that is a real gem that we have in this country. We shouldn't take it for granted. There's nothing else like it, really. That it just it's what the press should be, holding power to account without fear or favor, kind of thing. You know, if it disappears, then it's not going to come back, I don't think, and it'll be very very much missed.
And we have Holly's permission to talk about their stories on this show all the time. So that's how we use them. There you go. Nice. Wait by the mailbox for the investment to come, I guess. Cabinet will rewrite the Canada Post Corporation Act to allow speedier stamp rate hikes. So get ready for more stamp rate increases. The law currently requires cabinet approval for any increase, typically delaying higher revenues by 3 or 4 months. Joel Lightbound says he wants to be able to do it like in the blink of an eye. I don't know.
And presumably often.
Yeah. Anyway, the last time I used a stamp, I can't remember. I can't recall.
They're just going to get in. They're going to get into a position though where, you know, if people have to think twice before using Canada Post because of the price, then they have to worry about losing even more custom. But I don't know. I suppose this is all part of the mess that Canada Post has become, isn't it?
And here is our friend Justin Trudeau, the Hall of Famer, Fool of the Day, and with Karina Gold. She's still an MP for some strange reason, and you know she's the one that put out that tweet there a while back that says to landlock Alberta's oil and gas, and they've done a really good job of landlocking it for sure. But now they're being questioned. It's difficult to determine what good came of the multi-million-dollar subsidy program launched to promote United Nations policies. $60 million. Do you think we could use $60 million? You know, like people stealing meat, maybe they could use it. Then International Development Minister Karina Gold launched the program in 2021 on the promise of a brighter future for everyone. How's it looking? How's everybody feeling? How's everybody feeling? It was found that each individual project funded by the program has its own expected outcome, said an internal audit by the Department of Social Development. However, inconsistent tracking. This is a common theme. Inconsistent tracking of outcomes, especially in terms of raising awareness, made it difficult to draw a conclusion about the program's ability to increase awareness about sustainable development goals. But they did spend $60 million in 5 years to promote the United Nations Agenda for Sustainable Development.
It's just patronage again. It's just money for friends and make work, isn't it? It's so much of this waste can just be explained like that. It's like a favor almost to friends, isn't it? It's like it keeps people in work that doesn't really matter, doesn't do anything. It's just like there's a job for you, basically.
Well, they were just doling out money. She praised the program as ambitious. Goals lay out a path for us past the global pandemic towards a healthier, more. This is the word. Just listen to the buzzwords. Listen to Francois Philippe Champagne talk or Evan Solomon. They just put a bunch of buzzwords, and this is all it is. Just put 12 buzzwords into your paragraph, and then you're good, right? You can spend millions and millions of Canadian tax dollars. Here's some examples of the grants under the program. 900 grand to the University of Laval, another 900 to the Oceanwise Conservation Association of Vancouver, 780 to Concordia, 421 to the United Nations, 200,000 to the Federation of Saskatchewan Indians, another 200 grand to the University of Calgary, and 200 grand to the University of Waller. It doesn't say what it was for, though. Just whatever.
Peanuts to them, I suppose.
We got a little bit more on the ostriches here. A U.S. billionaire, we did the story on Friday. A U.S. billionaire calls for investigation after BC ostriches. And we got a little bit more, and there's a picture there that we did. But, Matt Taibbi, the guy that broke this story on X-Files, remember Matt Taibbi? Elon Musk gave him all the X-Files that showed the Democratic collusion in that. Well, Matt Taibbi there calling out CBC. Let's listen to what Matt Taibbi has to say about CBC. We're just trying to get it there. So yeah, Matt Taibbi did a lot of really good work on the X files. He was given, basically Elon Musk just gave him access to all the internal emails and documents and all that stuff that was going from the Democratic Party to executive at X to get them to censor certain people, deplatform people, all kinds of stuff that was revealed, and the censorship there. And so Matt Taibbi, definitely an independent journalist digging into things here. Have you got it yet? Okay, let's see what Matt has to say.
I think one of the funnier news leads that I've seen. This is CBC covering the shooting of these 330 ostriches, and watch the correspondent Caroline, I think it's Bargu, trying to describe what happened in front of a gigantic wall of hay bales, without using words like kill or dead. She has to express what happened to the ostriches.
And the latest developments at Universal Ostrich Farms. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency has now confirmed it's finished its cull of the farm's resident flock. It was ordered because of an avian flu outbreak last year. The CBC's Caroline Bargood is at the farm in Edgewood.
Right now, it is very quiet here. It's actually eerily quiet. We had been here a few times over the past few weeks, and we always would see ostriches. And
right.
Now we're not seeing ostriches.
Because they're all fucking dead.
The Canadian Food Inspection Agency has said that it has completed the cull of the ostriches. And it said last night, several of my colleagues from Radio Canada were here.
So, dude, it's not in a cull you leave some alive, okay? In a cull you take the weak. You don't go in, okay, you're going to see Walter in a form you've never seen.
There you go. You can go watch this on your own.
That was pretty funny, though, wasn't it? We used to see ostriches. Now we're not seeing ostriches at all. What the hell? I don't blame them. But look, most Canadians and most Canadian journalists don't have any insight into other journalistic cultures or other media cultures. They've just been in Canada their whole lives. Maybe if they've got any sort of insight, it's like watching NPR or listening to NPR or watching some of the American broadcasters who are also completely garbage. But I feel like Americans here, like a real journalist like Matt Taibbi, or I worked in London in England, where it's a very, very, very different media culture, and some other people that famously have come from other media cultures into Canada. It really is a shock. It's like it's a jump into a plunge pool. It's mad in this country, and I'm kind of like, I'm used to it now. I've been brutalized by it, and it's water off a duck's back now for me. But when I first came here and I would listen to the CBC, I just be like, what is this? What are these people doing who call themselves journalists? So this is not an unusual reaction, is basically what I'm trying to say. This is like, if a lot of my friends in England who still work in the major sort of British newspapers, I've told them bits and bobs about the journalism in this country, but if I bombarded them with it, they would explode with laughter at how crap it is. And the CBC leads the way. This glorious institution that we must protect at all costs. At the end of the day, it's just not very good, and the journalists are not very good. That's the bottom line. To the extent that foreigners, outsiders, laugh. Like, just have a think about that if you're one of the few people still defending the integrity of CBC News.
U.S. tourism sector suffering billions in losses amid Canadian reluctance to go south. And the U.S. economy will bring in $5.7 billion less this year from tourism. And that's according to a forecast by the U.S. Travel Association. So there may be deals there for you. Who knows? I've heard good and bad stories. I mean, if you watch the CBC and CTV, you'll hear these horror stories. But if you go on X or you go on different things, and people say it's like all good. I've been to the U.S. I was in California for about 10 days there just this year. It was great. So I don't know. People treated me well. Everything was great. And I went down to Palo Alto area there and Silicon Valley, and it was great. And I went to all the tech companies. And if I promote it like I was a liberal. Like I went on several trade missions. I did do transactions at Google. I did, yeah. I bought
Did you
a
sign
salad.
any MOUs?
I did buy a salad at Google, so it was a transaction. And
That was an MOU then, yeah.
I talked about security with at Cupertino. The security guard said I couldn't go in there. So, but I did discuss security with the people at Cupertino. And in Tesla, we talked about jobs. I asked for a job there.
Jobs for Canadians, no less.
And they said, sure. And they said, absolutely. You can. And they said, there's a building over there. You can go over there and apply. I just wanted to tour the factory. And they said, you had to be an employee. I said, what can I be an employee? She said, friends of employees or friends of employees or employees. And I said, well, can I apply? And she said, sure, you go over there. I went over there and I said, can I apply? And she said, sure. And I said, we seem like we're pretty good friends now. And she said, sure. And I said, can I have a tour? And she said, come back in 3 weeks. Friend.
That's how long it takes for the friendship to blossom.
The gel, I guess, right? But you know what? One of the good things that Anita Anand is really good at, and that is photo ops. She loves the photo op. We showed her a photo op. I think it was on Monday. We had a great photo op from Anita Anand. She must have her own photographer that follows her around because she is great at the photo ops. She's like number one.
Maybe number two, if we're thinking Melanie.
All right. But she also made a speech.
Don't forget Mel.
She's also, because Canada leads the G7 this year. And so there is a meeting in Niagara there right now. And then Anita made her little speech.
As G7 president in 2025, Canada has made it a priority to maintain and strengthen our support for Ukraine at every opportunity. Canada will continue to ensure that Russia's actions do not go unpunished. So today we are announcing a new package of sanctions to further increase the economic costs to Russia of waging war. Canada is a leader in targeting the military technologies that Russia is relying on in its war against Ukraine. With these and other steps, we are taking concrete action and sending a clear message.
That's good. Someone should remind her, China is one of the major funders of the Russia-Ukraine war by buying Russian oil. Yet we've given the Chinese a contract worth $3 billion, including $3 billion, and $1 billion of that is Canadian infrastructure bank money. That's Canadian taxpayer money that's gone there. Someone should remind her. And also, they got that contract because it was cheaper, because they don't have an industrial carbon tax. Weird. And they have human rights violations, and they use inferior steel and aluminum, and they fund the Ukrainian war. Odd.
However, all that said, put that in one category, and then in the other category, have you seen her blazer and scarf combination there, Jim? Do you know what that represents?
I do.
Any Einsteins out there?
I do.
That's the Ukrainian flag, everybody. That's because she is so friendly to Ukraine. She even wears their colors.
Remember at the UN when Mark Carney made that speech about recognizing Palestine too? She was like the seal there clapping. Like she was the only one in the room.
It? Almost too fast.
She was the only one in the room with a standing ovation. And also when Mark Carney made that speech there, talking about climate change goals and how we need to move the money from weak hands to strong hands. And again, the only way to interpret that is out of the private investors into government hands. And that's what this carbon tax is going to be all about. But the CBC, not only do they use their news for propaganda, they also have a thing like this hour is 22 minutes. And there you go. There is Mark Critch there with, I think, Francois Philippe Champagne probably should go on that show as a permanent guest. Or just maybe one of the, because like he fits right in.
Look at his, he's got two poppies. Again, talk about patriotism. We saw Anita Anand there she's shown how much it matters to her, and he's got 2 puppies. But I'm afraid the suspension of disbelief is interrupted by the fact that there's a pint of ale in front of champagne. I don't think he's ever drunk a pint in his life, has he? So I'm gonna call their bluff on that one.
We're going to move on to our BC news here. We got a little bit of BC news. We got some really good international stuff, so hang in there.
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
And we interviewed, good news here for Lindsay Reinhold. We interviewed her a couple of times. Oh, got the wrong image up there. We're waiting for it. Nope. Looks like we don't have it. But we interviewed Lindsay Reinhold. She was waiting for that liver transplant, and it's been confirmed she's going to get that operation here. If you can get that image up as we're moving along. She's going to get that operation here in December here. We reached out to BC Transplant. There was a lot of weird stuff going on there. We did quite a good coverage on this story, interviewed her twice. So hope to interview her again after a successful operation. Let's hope for her. Send your prayers out to her. And she's been waiting a long time, a young mother. There's the picture of Lindsay there, so there you go. Ken Sim, making news, eh? He's going to cut, if approved, the proposed budget could eliminate nearly 400 full-time jobs and reduce funding community services, arts, culture, real estate, planning facilities. He wants to have a 0% tax increase. He's also cutting the whole green department. So, getting a lot of pushback. Old Ken Sim. He also wants to make Vancouver the Bitcoin capital of Canada. Another thing that the Liberals don't like is Bitcoin, nor do they like gold for some strange reason.
But he's going to give more money to the cops. I mean, this is like bread and butter politics, isn't it? It's obvious stuff. If you do want to make life more affordable for people, you get rid of the garbage. You get rid of unnecessary bollocks, which is supposedly, or it's supposed to just be for the good times when there's money sloshing around, there's money to spare. Now we're in the bad times. So yeah, maybe we will have to cut the sort of superfluous junk that ends up sucking on taxpayers' teat. He's actually following through with that obvious logic. Obviously, he's not being accompanied by many other politicians in doing that.
He's doing a lot of common sense stuff, including like trying to get tough on crime. Imagine that, eh? Imagine that. And then Canada moving closer to somebody is trying to push through a bill for guaranteed livable basic income program, and that's kind of like CERB, right? And why work? Hey, why work? Why work?
I mean, there's a very real prospect that if AI is and automation in general, if that is going to be as kind of effective as people predict it will be, then theoretically there are going to be a lot of people that just can't do anything. Like there is no work for them. We're not quite there yet, are we? So it's getting ahead of itself a little bit.
So you're gonna have to go to work at least for a couple more years. How's that?
And then you can retire while robots try and like cook food.
Here's our international media. Some good stuff in here.
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
Here's Donald J. Trump talking about your friends at the BBC.
And suing the BBC?
Well, I guess I have to. Why not? Because they defrauded the public, and they've admitted it, and their top echelon.
Director General and the CEO
This
both
is
resigned.
within one of our great allies. This is supposedly our great ally, BBC. The government has a chunk of that one, I guess, but that's a pretty sad event. They actually changed my January 6th speech, which was a beautiful speech, which was a very calming speech, and they made it sound radical, and they actually changed it. What they did was rather incredible. They're showing me the results later on, the results of what they did, how they butchered it up, but it was very dishonest, and the head man quit, and a lot of the other people quit.
But they're unrepentant. That's the important bit. The BBC and the big boys, even the ones that quit, they're unrepentant. They still think that they still refuse to acknowledge the bias that sort of eats away at the heart of the BBC's integrity. And if that's the case, if they're not gonna have an epiphany on that, then it's never going to change, and the same thing is going to happen again.
Well, in breaking news, or at least for me anyway, Mark Carney, we just found out what that CEO of the Defense Investment Agency is going to get for a salary. $679,000 plus bonuses.
Nice.
Which at the end of the year could mean a salary of $900,000 a year. So yeah, doing well. There you go. And that's how many offices have they opened so far now? They got the housing lady, and hers was over 6.
Major projects.
Yeah, major projects office. That one was over 6. And then also, we still have that lady there that stares out into the sky and just wants to figure out a better way to name UFOs. Not necessarily like find them, just a better way so that they don't feel stigmatized. We don't want UFO people to be stigmatized.
They want to make sure that it's that there's gender balance, gender equity.
BBC taking a lot of heat for this. This is a big story. The BBC taking a lot of heat. And you go back to the other one. The BBC taking a lot of heat. And also, if you think about it, if you think of the ABC, that's the Australian Broadcast News, and then the BBC, the British Broadcasting News, and the CBC. I mean, I think the CBC, or the Canadian government has given the BBC money. I mean, if you look through the documents that Holly Doan has outlined that as well, that for some strange reason, we're funding the BBC. ABC, BBC, CBC. I'm sure they're going to start digging through these things and starting to find some things that look a little suspect. And I imagine there's lawyers pouring through right now, because this is probably going to be a huge lawsuit with the BBC. And, you know, there's a bunch of people in the United States calling on Trump to have a chat with Keir Starmer over this, because they call this election interference as well.
No doubt. I mean, and his party, remember, his party, the Labour Party, sent volunteers to go and campaign for the Democratic Party during the election. That was another scandal that's kind of bubbling under the surface a bit.
And these are the same people freaking out when Elon Musk, Brit, I think he still has a British passport, doesn't he? Or he has some British legacy there. You know, when he sticks
Muskie does, yeah. I think his grandmother, one of his grandmothers, was a Scouser from Liverpool.
And they screech like heck when Musk says anything about, and then they scream election interference. And what would this be, Keir? Anyway, Epstein mentioned Trump multiple times in private emails, apparently, and you know, that's supposedly coming out. The Democratic Party is definitely parading this around, saying that the president spent hours at his house with a sex trafficking victim. Trump has denied any involvement in Epstein's trafficking operation, but Democrats claiming Trump was involved in the cover-up. And of course, the White House says, Democrats, we're going to take a while for this to play out. And, you know, Bill Clinton in there too. So this guy, you know, a lot of people say he was an operative, and who knows?
They're just throwing him around. They're using him as like a weapon, aren't they? The Republicans used him against the Democrats. Yeah. Now the Democrats are using him against the Republicans. I mean, he was involved in a lot of fundraising and gave direct donations to the Democratic Party, infamously. I think he gave something like $200,000 or more to Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton. Like, the thing is, the entire American political class is completely filthy on this subject. It's almost like you could almost say that was the point, so that none of them could talk about it because they were all implicated. But for whatever reason, I guess just because of the dramatic way in which he sort of topped himself, or not, in prison, it's all kind of spilled out a bit, hasn't it? And I don't know, it's kind of, these people are not in a position to throw javelins. They don't have their shields up. So they're just going to get it thrown back at them, and, you know, the slime continues.
Bill Maher, no fan of Donald Trump, also went to dinner there, and he got a lot of heat because he's, you know, like a Democrat. And he's has a little conversation here. Let's listen to him talk to Hines here. Let's listen to what they have to say.
Thing about Trump, he really, really does not like war.
Which I love that about him.
I kind of do, because I don't want war either, and most of them are unnecessary.
Agreed.
I mean, he took a long time when I had that dinner with him talking about the pictures he sees coming from Ukraine, the stuff that doesn't get out on the news. It's like raw footage of bodies in the field.
Yes.
And you could tell it really moved him.
It's
like, I do not want to see this, and I'm the kind of guy who can fix this, at least, you know, he's never not going to be Trump. So, of course, he's like, I solved 9 wars. And, you know, okay, even if it's half.
That's good.
He's doing an Arnold Schwarzenegger impression there at the end, doesn't he? I've solved 9 wars. It's like, that's not Donald. That's not Donny.
But here's your friends in GB News here, I believe. They're talking about what the UK did to itself with net zero agenda. Canada seems to be still on the path. Let's listen to what she has to say.
So net zero is stupid, and I'll double down on it, because we have the highest energy bills in Europe. We have manufacturing companies that are leaving. We've deindustrialized our Great Britain at the altar of net zero. You know what happens? Yes.
We have deindustrialized.
Are you going to let me speak like I let you speak?
Of course I will.
Yeah. So we are importing solar panels from China, who has dirtier energy than we do, and repatriating it here. Thanks to net zero, we've outsourced our pollution, we've outsourced our growth, and we've outsourced our manufacturing. And that's what net zero has done to us. While China and India are ramping up coal production, ramping up fuel production, we're ramping it down, and we're becoming dependent on them for everything.
All right, well, listen, I'll tell you what, we do have a net zero.
We've shut down our steelworks, we've closed our coal plants, we've taxed our industries out of existence. And your party, and call it progress. It's madness. We've offshored our emissions, we've offshored our jobs, and we've offshored our pride, all to meet a target that China couldn't care less about. And you can't call it green when all the steel and all the wind farms coming from China from blast furnaces. So, I mean, how can it be green when it's the dirtiest energy used in China, and we ship it here? We don't need more targets. We don't need net zero. We need energy, industry, and self-respect. We need an abundance. And let's be honest, the only thing at risk is not the climate. With net zero, the only thing at risk is our economy.
Can we import her?
I think she was reading off she had like a cue sheet there, didn't she? Which is a bit disappointing, but otherwise,
she sounds better than most. I mean, she sounds better than most. I mean, we could use that same speech here, PR, if you're listening. There you go. There's your next speech. Try to deliver it like she did it, though.
The thing is, though, the British, it's especially stupid what the British did, because they did it way too fast. That's another thing. They just accelerated it to
slow pain is better.
A ridiculous degree.
Slow death is better, like we're doing.
No, but I'm just saying that's what made it all the worse for them. But what really screwed the British over is that they used to rely on coal. Coal is the kind of native fuel that's still available. That's how the British can sort of power their own economy. And they declared war, vicious, savage war on coal, and just completely got rid of it. And then they were just screwed. They were completely exposed. And that's what's left them having to import really expensive gas to try and prop up their sort of, intermittent renewables. But whereas with Canada, is what I was going to say, it's hard for Canada to do that much damage to itself because of hydro. Hydro is always, well, for most of the provinces or many of the provinces, hydro is there to kind of save the day, which is, it's true in many ways with Canada. The ancestors, the forebears who governed this country before the present day, they built such a wealthy and glorious country that was almost impossible to destroy, almost impossible to make impoverished. And that still lives on. So it doesn't matter how insane the present leaders are today in Canada. It's very, very, very hard for them to screw it up as much as the British did, unless, and I don't put this past them, unless they start destroying the dams and figure out some reason to hate hydropower. But otherwise, we can kind of like chunter along in second world territory while the British go into third worldism.
Well, here's another young female with a firebrand, Tommy Robinson liking her speech. I like the other girl's speech better, but let's listen into what this firebrand has to say.
Ursula von der Leyen thinks she is untouchable. She thinks she is above the law. But we are here today to remind her that she is not. So allow me to take this moment, look straight into the camera, and speak truth to power for a moment. Mrs. von der Leyen, do you think about what you have done? Do you think about the people who suffer because of your policies? Do you think about the people who have died because of a vaccine that you pushed on them, that you bought behind closed doors? Mrs. von der Leyen, do you ever think about the cries of the mothers who cry at night because their children were raped or murdered by immigrants that you let in?
You can go watch that full speech. But Ursula, she's in COP30 right now, and she's delivering speeches about threats to democracy and social media. Like that lady there needs to be silenced, I think.
Well, and it's been pointed out, I think it was Elon, wasn't it? He's having a go saying, who is she to talk about democracy when she's not elected? That was one of the main arguments for the people that were in favour of Britain leaving the European Union, was that these people that rule over the European Union, and therefore Britain, are not elected, and that's not healthy. That's not a democratic system. That was one of the strongest arguments from the Brexit people. So yeah, it's a funny one. Von der Leyen just seems to be completely disconnected from reality, I must say. She kind of opens herself up to a lot of this. This girl, though, Eva Vlaardingbroek or whatever, that I can't even begin to pronounce her name. She's she's got herself in a lot of trouble. She said some things that have really scared some people, let's say, and been accused of all kinds of things. But this is the kind of world that we're in. We are going through this polarization process and radicalization process. But it's strange because on the one hand, you have people like that who are called extreme and all the rest of it. It's like, okay, we can diagnose this. Get the DSM out. Yep, she's a nutcase. But then the people who have radicalized her and people like her call themselves centrists, and the sensible centrists who just always do the right thing. Obviously, they are also diagnosably mental, aren't they? And that's kind of why we're here.
Did you put this next one in with Jacinda Ardern? Did you put that in? No,
I would never, ever go out of my way to expose you to Jacinda Ardern.
We'll go past it because just in the interest of time. Gavin Newsom's in Brazil there because nobody else from the Trump administration showed up. So Gavin went there because he's still talking about climate change and wildfires. I'm not going to play his clip. But Gavin says the same stuff all the time. Gavin talking about how the wildfires started because of climate change. It was arson. And they're being sued for billions of dollars because of neglect. There's emails that have surfaced from the fire department when they were told to leave the area. And they said that's not a good idea. The fire's not out. But hey, you go, Gavin. He was signing.
It's so much more than just that, though, isn't it? As well, it's not just arson. It's also, as usual, it's management of vegetation. Like California, like a lot of cities in America, is full of trees and bushes and things that aren't native to the area and don't belong there. There's just so many reasons why these fires happen, and it's just, it's first of all, it's an insult to our intelligence. I think to the people's intelligence, just to blame everything on climate change, as if it's not more complicated than that.
This one is even better. The mayor Brandon Johnson from Chicago there is calling on the United Nations to come and stop ICE and Trump. I'm sure they're going to send their army in to protect Chicago. Let's listen to what this goes on here.
Johnson is asking the United Nations to intervene to stop your operations. Here is what he said before the UN Human Rights Council. Listen to this.
The federal government's immigration enforcement has been marked by violence and an assault on the dignity of all Chicagoans. I call on this council to hold the federal government of the United States to the same standards of accountability you apply elsewhere in the world. No country should be above international law. I urge the Human Rights Council to consider additional measures of accountability, including a special session to examine the worsening human rights crisis in the United States.
Tom, this is just pure lunacy, but what is your reaction to all of that?
He just proved he's not that smart, right? I mean, asking the United Nations to
asking the United Nations to interfere with ICE enforcing U.S. law is like asking an arsonist how to stop a fire, because the UN, remember, the IOM, the part of the UN, helped fund the mass migration during the Biden administration 4 years, spending millions upon millions of dollars helping that migration.
Is that not? I'm not being completely facetious here, but is that not treason? Asking a foreign power, foreign entity to come and intervene in American affairs. There's a constitution. I'm sure there's a constitution that says lots of bad things about that sort of thing.
I mean, it calls into question a lot of things, and maybe they're lucky they're just looking at it as a loony right now, as opposed to like somebody that's trying to ask a foreign body to come and intervene. But that foreign body has been proven to already intervene because they were actually funding the mass migration to the United States too. So there you go.
Also, that foreign body only exists because of America anyway. And at the end of the Second World War, the Americans were leading the charge, wanted to create a successor to the League of Nations and create the UN, whose headquarters is in New York City.
But one of the main...
it's a bit of banter, isn't it? It's a joke.
One of the main reasons the UN was formed, too, was to stop wars and that. And Trump claims to have stopped 7 and no help from the UN.
Well, the UN, I can't remember the last time the UN was of any value at all, really. I mean, I feel like it used to be back in the day. But yeah, not so much these days.
It sounds like CNBC putting this out. It looks like the Sharks are waiting for Keir Starmer to just make one more tiny mistake while they pull out the last kerplunk for him.
Well, they're doing their budget very soon, and it's going to be a very bad budget. They've already said that they're going to raise taxes. I mean, the country already has taxes higher than it has had at any point since like the Second World War or something like that. The tax system in Britain is just repulsive. And they're just going to keep doing it. They're going to keep raising taxes. So that'll alienate the majority of people. But they're also not pushing the lefty, obsessions that the people in the party want to pursue. So they're almost like not pleasing anybody. So the people within the Labour Party who want all these mad left-wing ideas to be implemented, they're just kind of asking themselves, like, what is the point? The leadership is unpopular with the masses, and we also hate them. So why don't we just knife them and then we'll do some mad left-wing stuff for a few years before we get booted out of office?
If Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron lose their position, that'll leave Mark Carney all alone.
But like, as we've said many, many times, these are yesterday's people, aren't they? They're yesterday's men. And that was just one of the strangest things about the election of Mark Carney was, it was already receding, wasn't it? The sun had already set. We could just about see the sort of remnants of the sunlight. And that was when Canada chose to elect their own sort of Keir Starmer. It's like, what? Everyone else has turned their back on this. And we're just kind of waiting for the clock to tick down for the likes of Keir Starmer and Macron and all that to shuffle off the scene. And then we've seen the Japanese have even firmly turned their back on whatever you want to call what we're living through, hyperliberalism or whatever. And then Canada was like, you know what? Give me 5 years of that, please.
Like I said, if you'd have to be pretty blind as a reporter if you don't see, if they drop the emissions cap, like you just can't add, you drop the emissions cap and they introduce carbon capture credits as a way to deal with the drop of the emissions cap, and Brookfield happens to be one of the world leaders in carbon credits. If you can't tie the three together in this blind trust and all that, I mean, that will be one of the biggest conflict of interests ever. And inflation falling in some parts of the world, not so much in Canada, though. India, inflation cools more than expected in October. There you go. People fleeing India may be fleeing back.
What's that? That's 800. What is that? A big bag of rice there for 899 rupees, which is the equivalent of $14.20.
Not getting
so
that.
There you go.
Not getting that.
Well, India, I don't know if people know this. India is like one of the most fecund countries on the planet in terms of their produce. They produce. They have like several growing seasons. They produce so much vegetation and meat and everything else. So, food should be cheap there, frankly.
And Ian's right on one of our strengths is electricity. One of our strengths is, like our hydro and our cheap LNG and all that stuff. And that is one of the things not being talked about, and how we can attract AI companies out of the U.S. for data centers, because, we showed you, I think, like about a week ago now, how Microsoft and OpenAI say they have chips sitting on the shelves that they can't put into play because they don't have enough power. That's the bottleneck right now, power.
And the scary thing is, if you want to be scared, the Chinese, they get a lot of credit, don't they, for having built loads of solar panels? Yeah, they have gone absolutely mad on solar panels, to the point where they're knocking out more solar, and they're getting more sort of gigawatts than every country combined when it comes to solar panels, like just every year. They are doing that, but the other thing is they're using coal as a base load power, like 60% or something of their energy mix is coal.
They're firing as
they are
SMRs,
really in it
everything.
to conquer.
Everything from SMRs to coal to electricity to solar to wind, everything at disposal. It's all about power. And I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but they're literally putting up like a dam, the equivalent of a dam, I think, a week. Like, you know what I mean? They're putting out that much power. So they will not let anything stand in the way. Energy is the future, and Canada does not recognize that. And yet we sit on vast amounts of energy, and yet we want to tax it to death, to the point where companies like Enbridge and that are saying, well, I'm just going to go somewhere else. You know what I mean? Because it can wait, I guess, but the opportunity.
The Chinese are in it to win it, basically. That's the takeaway. They're really in it to win it. They don't give a shart about the environment. They don't care about anything except winning. And that has to, if you look at the just the raw numbers of the sort of gigawatts brought online, it's scary. If AI really is going to and quantum, if they're really going to determine the future, China's going to win the future, because they're going to have all the energy. And not only that, but they've decided now that they're going to weaponize their refining monopoly of rare earths. Where's the conversation in places like Canada? Like, have you heard any politicians say recently, we're going to refine rare earths big time here in Canada? No. Why not? Because the environmental lobby is too powerful, and they would hate that. They would never let that happen because it's a filthy process. It's just, the Chinese, I can't emphasize it enough. They're playing to win, and I really don't get that impression from any country in the West, except maybe the US under Trump. But Canada, certainly. Canada's not in it to win it at all. If we were, we would be going crazy on power generation and the refinement of rare earths. And obviously we're not. It's there for anybody to see. We're not doing that.
We're on the backside of a year for Mark Carney's Liberals. We're closing in on a year, and what really has been accomplished? You have to ask yourself, what really has been accomplished in this?
Well, the Liberal Party's doing all right in the polls. That's an accomplishment, I suppose.
But how does that helping people put food on the table is a better question.
Who said anything about helping people put food on the table, Jim? This is about the Liberal Party.
And here's another announcement for you. Remember when the CTV and them were putting out the story? Toyota never said it was going to do anything in the United States. It's just a vague thing. See how they always just come out and slack? Look at this. Toyota, CNBC, Toyota opens new U.S. battery plant, confirms $10 billion in new investments. Oops. Oops. Oopsie. And we do listen to our readers, and we got this beautiful photo sent in to us of the Northern Lights here. Well, we can't really see that piece, but yeah, so we're not seeing the full photo there, but we'll have it on our X and stuff like that later today. But we also, some of the comments, and I just want to share some of them. And this person wrote in, I just want to comment on your headline regarding ostrich cull by saying they were gunned down. We put that in quotation marks, by the way, is both inaccurate and inflammatory. They said they were euthanized in the most humane way possible with vets in attendance.
Okay. What did the vet say? Did the vet say, it's okay, Mr. Ostrich, before the gun was fired?
Yeah. And then somebody else says he's been a Kelowna reader since October 2020, and at first we're tabloid style articles. But I don't know, I got to get through all this stuff. And he didn't like the ostriches gun. It's amazing how they all kind of seem to say the same thing, right? You know, that
I think unbeknownst to these people, they've been politicized and radicalized themselves, and they have a team in mind that they support, and they don't think that we support that team. That's 90% of the emails that we receive. People that don't even realize that they're on a team saying, "Oh, you're on a team, aren't you?" Not quite.
We did this story. I think we're the only ones in Kelowna that had the story on the vandalized CFIA office because it's right near our office. And I think, you know, overall that thing is, plus the Daily Mail picked it up. A couple million views on that, a couple million. So, but
it's terrible for the CFIA, and you know, I'm trying to get an interview with them, but they're reluctant to do it because they're worried about staff safety. That's the reason that they've given. But I really feel like they need to get out there. They need to get out and start talking about it, because people, I'm not sure even they realize just how energized the population is about this, you know.
And then one last comment here, and you feel free to share them with us. This one says they find the anti-liberal content to be tiring and biased, and they've had enough. Well, they are in power, and our job is to hold power accountable. And this is a news commentary show, so they are in power. Who should we hold accountable? And if you don't see, I guess you don't like all the fraud and incompetence and abuse, I guess. Well, I guess that troubles you, the amount of money that's spent. I shouldn't say fraud. Waste, abuse, incompetence, possibly fraud. Where's the documents for Stephen Guilbeault's $250 million apparently in this green slush? Can we have those? Is that possible?
Yeah, I find it very disappointing, I must say. And we do get attacked as well from people on the other side who think that we're, you know, liberal shills or whatever. But it's true what Jim says. If you're in power, you're the person that should expect to be scrutinized. There's only so much value to be obtained from scrutinizing Pierre Poilievre or the NDP or whatever, because really they don't have any power. They don't really have any responsibility, except for when they vote, I guess. And that's about it really when it comes to casting their vote in the House of Commons. But you know, you have to hold power to account. That's kind of the whole point. That's the whole point of this system that we inhabit. It's so sad that there are so many people out there that don't seem to understand that basic sort of fact.
We could talk in the fancy words that the Liberals talk. Iain could talk words around anybody. He's probably the most versed in vocabulary that I know. And he could talk about these words that mean nothing. But the better way to do is speak in simple language to people. Speak in simple language so that people understand what you're trying to say. And if you listen to the Liberals when they talk, most people, Iain and I, we educated, we don't seem to understand what they're saying. For some strange reason, they don't speak clearly. Why not is the question. Why not? Why not speak?
Yeah, and it's almost seems intentional at this point, doesn't it?
Yeah, and the documents, the no transparency, no accountability. The blind trust, again, if you go back to Scott Bessett, he sold all his stocks. Why wouldn't Mark Carney have done the same thing if he really cared about Canada? Why wouldn't he have done the same thing? Because right now, you could only look at this carbon capture thing, which is going to be a big thing, and you can say you heard it here first. It's going to be a big thing if these carbon credits go through in replacement of this emissions cap, and Mark Carney still owns many options on Brookfield, which is one of the leading companies in the world on carbon credits. And if the media doesn't go after him on it, then we know. I mean, it's, well, we already know, but you'll get your own proof. Well, we're going to have a little bit of fun here at the end here, because why not? The Liberals don't take their job seriously, so why should we? Listen, let's listen in on this clip here.
676767, Mr. Speaker. One of my questions was, is this pipeline going to come? So boring.
Does the minister know what an RPAL is?
No, Minister. I do not.
Does the minister know what the CFSC is?
I'm a minister. I do not know. More already for you.
That's the guy in charge of the guns, though, by the way, right? He doesn't know what those two things are. Why
I mean, I haven't got a gun, and I know what they are. Like, come on.
But he's in
That's
charge of the
shocking,
guns.
though, isn't it? That is really shocking.
How much have they spent already on the gun buyback program and not got any guns? I can't
About
remember.
50 mils or something, wasn't it? It was about that.
And also,
of a $750 million budget, I think.
And also, we did this story just, I think it was last week. All the train cars that are coming into Canada with no inspection, like no inspection, and they're full of guns and meth and fentanyl. But yeah,
and there's
after
also the ships, the
cargo, sea cans.
Cargo, yeah.
But go after the registered gun owners, right? What a distraction. That's what I mean. It's not even serious. It's not serious. Can't be serious.
That is the anarcho-tyranny thing. And, I'm not saying that that's their intention or anything like that, but it certainly looks like, well, what eventuates looks like a sort of version of anarcho-tyranny, doesn't it? When you get persecuted like mad as a law-abiding citizen, constantly followed around and given new taxes and new responsibilities and new punishments, while you walk down the street and see people steal, I don't know, an entire bag full of whiskey or something like that, and they're not going to get punished. Or you see guns coming in the country, and you just know that it's not even effort being made to try and stop them.
Well, Lightning Rod, we fight for Canada. That's what we do here. We fight for Canada because it's got to be better than this. Because we can't. Have you been to the grocery store and seen people standing there looking at meat like it was a luxury item? Lightning Rod, have you? Or does you just care about what yourself and how, like the people in government get? You know what I mean? Like 136,000. A lot of people are really suffering in Canada. I've done so many stories, so many interviews. And there's 67% of the population, $200 away from meeting their monthly obligation. Things about to get worse with these mortgage renewals. Things about to get worse. Investment flees Canada. And we fight for Canada. We fight for Canada. We tried to hold power accountable. I would ask you what you try to do other than try to come on here and make us seem like we're some kind of I don't know, separatist claptrap, I imagine. That's hilarious.
I think he might have been talking to this other guy that said Western Republic.
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
But then the thing is, when it comes to that, can you not understand why maybe there are some people that want to separate? I mean, that's what I feel. Me and Jim and myself have never advocated for that, but we do understand why there is that sentiment, why people in Alberta particularly feel betrayed. You've just got, I feel like it's incumbent upon you as a responsible citizen to try and understand your fellow citizens. Don't just attribute malice to them all the time. Don't just try and make them seem evil. Then people aren't evil because they want Alberta to separate, for God's sake. It's not some secret plot. They just think that it might be better for them and they might be able to have a better, polity, a better country.
And one of the things you have to remember too, this is a news commentary show. And Iain and I mean, we live news and we go through this stuff. You're going to learn more here and you're going to learn about tech and all kinds of stuff you can use as value. Stuff you're not going to see on CBC. We're not trying to feed you a narrative. We're just trying to share with you and trying to point you to where we should ask better questions. We should be able to ask better questions. And thank you from Hamilton, Ontario. We appreciate that. And if you could help us share this show, that would be greatly appreciated because we fight Bill C-18 every day still. And we're live every weekday at 9 a.m. Iain and I put a lot of work into this show. And we don't have CBC's budget. If they give us a sliver of that, would be really appreciated.
I'm just looking at Lightning Rod there calling us thick. We're
calling
thick.
us what? Thick?
It means it's English slang for stupid. You say we're stupid.
Me know so much, I guess. I was a high school dropout, so there's that. So you must have nailed it there. So
maybe Mr. Rod has revealed himself as an Englishman. Are you secretly English, Lightning Rod? Is that why you hate me so much?
Thank you from Edmonton as well. So again, if you could help us spread the show, we would appreciate it. And we do this, like I said, it's a news commentary, and we try to bring you, a different perspective for sure. It's all about perspective, isn't it? Anyway.
It's a symposium. That's what it is.
There you go. We're back tomorrow with more symposium. And we are collecting all the photo ops. I think at the end of the year, we'll run Anita and Ann's photo op. And Melanie Jolie. You know what I mean? There you go. And Lightning Rod says we give him lots of entertainment. We're glad we're there for you. And we like you too. We actually like Lightning Rod. When he shows up, we're actually very, very thankful because he's one of our regulars, and we appreciate Lightning Rod. But we also want to keep him honest as well. All right, thank you. We could sit here all day, I guess, but thank you for watching Now Media.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.